is the September 19, 2017 regular meeting of the Frankfort Plant Board. Ask Kathy to call the board members, please.
Member Ludwig?
Here.
Member Green?
Here.
Member Seaby?
Here.
Member Baldwin?
Here.
Member Rosen?
Here.
All right, 5 members present. This evening, the first 2 action items, as usual, are minutes. To consider approving minutes of the August 15, 2017 board meeting, and to accept the minutes of the August 30, 2017 FPB Ethics Committee. First time on that one. Everybody's been supplied with those ahead of the meeting, had an opportunity to examine them. Do we have any comments?
I think I was left off the minutes of the August the 30th meeting, but it was noted in the later on that all 5 members were present. So
Let's see, August 30 was the ethics.
There are only 3 members, I think.
Yeah,
that's fine.
yeah, okay. All right, okay, any more comments? Anything? If not, do we have a motion?
I move we accept the minutes.
Both sets?
Well, how do we do it on number 2? Since we weren't there, I mean, it's someone else's minutes. Do we accept, how do we, I don't mind making a motion, but I don't know, how do we accept someone else's minutes if we weren't?
I guess we're accepting them into the system.
Record?
Right.
Yeah, and so like
Not
in committees.
approve them as to
Yeah.
accuracy or form, we're just saying,
Yeah,
we got it.
I had the same thought.
Yeah.
And since there was FPB participation there and the attorney was there, I thought that we should bring it in.
Sure.
Okay, do we have a motion? Do we have a motion?
I move we accept both with your clarification, Mr. Chairman, that
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further comments, discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Hearing no no's, motion carries. Okay, next item is David Denton with his electric, water, and cable financials and statistical data for July and August of 2017.
So I guess multiple times.
Good evening, Board. We are now 2 months through the current fiscal year. As you know, our year ends June 30 of each year. Last month, I presented to you the June 30, 2017 financials. It takes a little more time to close the books and get those ready for audit. And we presented June to you and talked about bringing to you July and August. Today, since July is come and gone, I thought I'll just focus on August. That will include July's activity as well. I'd like to start, if we can, look into your board book. On page 73, we're going to focus on August. I'd be glad to go into anything in July if you'd like, but looking at the statement of net position. Statement of net position is a nonprofit word for a balance sheet. So I'm looking at the very first column where we are as of August 31st, 2017. Line 65, the plant board had just over $169 million in total assets. Of our total assets, by far, most of those are comprised of our property, plant, and equipment, net of accumulated depreciation. About 69% of our total assets are held in that class. The next set, you could say, of our highest assets will be our cash and CD balances, which comprise about 16%, and we will talk about those in our cash and investment section. But you can see there on line 65, looking at the far column, we're up 2.3%, or $3.8 million in total assets for the year, so that is a good news. Moving, anytime you can show net revenues being reinvested back into your plant is a good thing. On line 120, total liabilities as of August 31st are just under $88.4 million. Something to look at there at the third column. You can see total liabilities are down 2.7 or 3%. We like to see those going down. And then the net position. You take your assets, subtract your liabilities, gives you your total net position for the period. On line 155, net position just under $80.7 million, bringing your total liabilities and net position to $169 million for the period. There's not much change from from June. So unless there's anything, questions or comments about that, I'm going to move on to our cash and investments report, which is a required report that we need to give to you each year, or each month, I should say. So this report, as of August 31st, we are required in our investment policy to provide a cash and investment schedule to the board. This shows a list of our restricted and unrestricted cash, restricted and unrestricted debt, investments, I should say. You can see on line 155, total restricted cash as of August 31st is just under 1.8 million, with total unrestricted cash, line 100, of just over 16.7, bringing total restricted and unrestricted cash, line 105, to just over $18.5 million. Looking at our investments, total restricted investments on line 140 of just over 9.3, and our unrestricted investments of just over 118,000 for total restricted and unrestricted investments of just over 9.4 million. It's worth saying that our investments are comprised solely of certificates of deposit and are in line and in accordance with our investment policy. It's worth noting when you look at cash, part of the reason for our decrease in cash from year over year is the fact that we've moved cash to investments. And we went through all that last year, but it's just something worth pointing out when you look at the change year over year. I'd like to move on, if we could, to the debt summary for the period. This is August 31st, where we sat as on page 75. We started the year out June 30, 2017 at just over $43.4 million. Most of our all of our principal and interest payments are either quarterly or are semi-annually, so we've made no payments through this first 2 months of the year. So total debt is where we began at $43.2 million. Something I wanted to go over with the board, and I think I might have left it at my seat. I know there was something, I passed this out, it was a little bit too big to get into the board package, but as I thought about ending a year, starting a new year, I gave a handout to the board right before the meeting started. Just wanted to show you our debt covenants for our electric and water revenue bonds require that we keep a 1.2 debt service coverage for the, we have 3 sets of electric and water revenue bonds, the 2009, 2013, 2015A bonds, and those require us to have a 1.2 rating. This first sheet shows you a summary. We combine electric and water revenues, since those revenues are pledged to pay back the debt. You can see their debt service coverage is 2.5, so we're more than double what we were required to have as of the end of the fiscal year. The second sheet I have here is the debt service coverage for our telecom division. We do track and keep those separated so we can make sure that we can calculate these coverages. We looked in target at 1.2, and we had a 1.8 debt service coverage as of June 30, 2017, so we're well within our bounds there. I mentioned audit, and it's worth noting that we're working and very close to finalizing the audit report. Crowe Horwath is who the board has retained for this last fiscal year, and we look to bring that to the board in October. So we'll have that to you and expect it to be just as good as the others. One thing I also have passed out is a debt service schedule that shows a layout of all of the principal and interest payments for all of our current debt. So as we sit of June 30, which is the same as we sit August 31st, you can see the principal and interest payments by year. If you go to the far right, you can see the principal, interest payments, total debt service by year as well. I've also included on the back side of this, dropped in, we've talked about some projects coming up. One of them is the reservoir. And I know on this agenda we have looking at going down the path of securing a KyMEA loan for this. That KyMEA loan is a 1.75% loan with a quarter of a point service fee, which is extremely low. If you look at the interest rate that we would be able to get in the market today for a A-rated municipal bond, which is we're A-rated, it's around 3.5%, so that's significant savings. We drop that in on top of, assuming today we're at $5.7 million on the third lien lease, assuming that we borrow the rest of that money down, which is what we've talked about during budgeting and also talking about tonight. I put those two side by side so you can see what we look like. As we stand today, those 2 additional borrowings are all that we've budgeted, and that's all that we've planned to spend going forward. So that's just something, Mr. Keybine, you'd asked about scheduling, so I thought that'd be helpful. This is a little small, so we'd be glad to email a PDF if you'd like to see it. A little bigger, you can zoom in and out. I guess I want to move on. The final thing would be just a little brief look at where we are financial performance through August 31st. So I'm looking at page 76, looking at the third column. This is year-to-date, so this is the first 2 months of the year. Budgeted about $17.7 million in total revenue. Operating revenue, it's $16.4 million. Not surprising, we have fluctuations in usage, customers in telecom. Operating expenses, 12.8 versus our budget of 12.9, so we're right in line when you look at gross margin on line 55, just below a little on gross margin, but nothing to be concerned about. If you go all the way down to the bottom, net contribution, we are showing that we are just under where we thought we'd be for the year at $545,000 versus $688,000. So we are progressing as usual, progressing as we thought we would. There's something I would like to bring up and comment about. Whenever customers look at their August bill, they might notice a little higher PCA credit than usual. When calculating that and inputting it, I actually made an input error, which resulted in much larger credit going to customers than we intended to give. We look to PCA that is given to us from KU, we pass along the very next month. So what that resulted in is quite a bit larger PCA. We are looking to get that. The good news is it happened during a high usage month. So people using their AC a lot during August did get a higher credit. But we are going to go and have the PCA recoup that amount over the next 4 months. This power cost adjustment is a moving target. So we're always trying to hit it. So I just want to apologize for any inconvenience they might cause our customers, but at least it happened during a high usage month. So I just want to make that point. I think we're going to have it on the website and maybe in the bills as well. So that's pretty much all I have regarding financials tonight. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to go over those.
Anything for David?
I'm good.
Okay, I'll move that we accept David's reports.
Second.
Discussion. If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Hearing no no's, motion carries. Okay, next item is an action item. Approve final plans and specifications for fencing, landscaping, and parking lot demolition at Headend Reservoir property on Tanglewood Drive. Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. And this is going to be my last opportunity to thank you for your service, Dr. Green. We appreciate you over in the Cable Telecom Department. I think I probably speak for all staff members. Thank you for your service. Staff recommends the board approve the final construction documents and specifications for the fencing, landscaping, and parking lot demolition at the Headend Reservoir property. The board will remember last month, Aaron Nickerson was here with GRW. Aaron is with us again tonight to fill in some blanks if we need some help out here. He presented really the plans that we present here tonight with a few exceptions. There really aren't any changes to the demolition plan on the parking lot. There are no changes to the fencing, but there have been some modifications to the landscaping. At the last meeting in August, the board and the staff agreed to meet with Tanglewood, and we did on August 28th, as they gave them an opportunity to kind of review all the plans after our August meeting. They came back to us at the August 28th meeting with some suggestions on a couple of items. If you turn over into your board package to page 132, it's a copy of a letter that was an outcome of the meeting itself. And it's a letter from Herbie to Nathan Van Sickle, who happens to be the president of Tanglewood Neighborhood Association. And so this letter pretty clearly lays out the items that Tanglewood asked the plant board to consider. Number one was that they requested FPB provide a steady and continuous maintenance program, and the FPB agreed to the landscaping itself. And FPB agreed to prepare a separate RFP and award a contract to maintain the landscaping for an initial 3-year period. The next thing TNA requested was an assurance that the initial plantings would have a 5-year replacement guarantee and warranty. And we probably spent as much time as anything talking about that one item. GRW had their landscape architect there in attendance as well. And we agreed that the best course of action would be to keep a standard 1-year warranty and contract documents, and FPB would replace any landscaping that perished after the initial warranty. The third thing TNA requested was a removal and change in placement of a number of plants and trees. And you'll see on pages 132 and 133, I'm not going to read every one of them, but There were some changes and additions and deletions at 100 Hay, 102, 104 Hay, 104 Reservoir Road, 106 Reservoir Road. GRW took all of those changes into consideration and made all of those changes into what's being presented to you today, with a couple of exceptions. I think there were a few plants that were close to underground utilities. We talked through those particular items at the meeting on August 28th, and everybody there was agreeable to making those two changes. The fourth thing that TNA requested was the contractor install temporary fencing during the demolition of the fence and everything, and that's already part of the construction document, so that was no big deal there. TNA requested FPB work with adjacent property owners on an individual basis to address and effectively mitigate their particular concerns. Specifically, TNA requested FPB allow private landscapers to enter FPB property in order to plant landscaping in the backyard of adjoining property owners. FPB stated that the best time to access all that was before all this project got going, and to do it first. So FPB agreed to coordinate and accept a time frame and of access that property owners subject to review that of FPB legal staff regarding liability concerns. I don't know that we've been specifically at the plant board told what an individual owner wants or needs yet. And I think we'll have that, in talking with Hans a little bit ago, we're going to have to evaluate from a liability standpoint exactly what the adjacent landowner is asking for. And then he'll have an opportunity to review that and see the type of liability that the plant board may have. Did I misspeak on that, or is that clear?
No, it kind of depends on what type of project you're doing, as far as what insurance is a good amount. If you just have somebody with a with a weed eater, for example, you don't need millions of dollars in coverage. Whereas if you have someone that's putting a crane in and lifting large large trees, for example, in close proximity to the plant board's infrastructure, you would require a little more coverage than so it depends on the circumstances.
But you think that's workable as far as, because I don't think you were talking about cranes, but I do think from just the informal conversation, the impression was there are going to be some homeowners who might want to put some additional plantings on their side of the yard, some maybe large trees or whatever, that would have to come across our property and come across the fence, the retaining wall. And I think that was the question, wasn't it, John, in terms of...
Yeah. And
Oh yeah, so it can be worked out. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, I think to the satisfaction of the board and management, I think you can be, you come to some resolution of it pretty
Tanglewood has
easily.
basically said this letter represents what they understood happened at that meeting also, correct?
that's, yes, sir. The last item that was covered was TNA requested that the plant board allow TNA representatives to be present at the on-site plant stakeout review. And what we agreed to was that they would have, TNA would have a point person, the plant board would have a point person, everybody would meet, and everybody would decide exactly what their proper placement would be of all the trees and plants, and that we would work together in a cooperative fashion to get that done. So that's the letter itself. It kind of goes with the item. I want to remind the board from a calendar point of view. Back in July, the board agreed that we would be at this point sometime around September 1st. So we're obviously 19 days beyond that, and so we're off the schedule just a little bit. So we'd have to kind of redo the schedule just a little bit by 3 weeks to get us back on track. But the next item, as we understand it, is if approved tonight, that the next scheduled item would be to submit the information for consideration at the Franklin County Planning Commission. In talking with Aaron over the course of the last few days, this isn't a process that staff has been through before at Planning Commission, so I'm not really sure exactly what to expect. And I think taking Aaron's advice that if it's approved tonight, that we would schedule a meeting with the planning staff as quickly as we could, so we could understand how this process works, and that we can follow the process as we should to kind of keep this thing moving. So I will do my best to answer questions if I can. If not, I'm thankful that GRW is here to help me, and we can keep this process moving.
When would be the first time? When would be the first time the residents of Tanglewood would see something happen in terms of equipment on site or things starting to?
Well, reflecting back to the to the calendar, keeping in consideration, we probably need to push it back 3 more weeks. The construction schedule, the execute the documents was going to be around February 20th, and beginning construction was going to be around March 6th. So I think if we were to really not be able to make up these 3 weeks, we're talking closer to the end of March, if we kind of stayed on that same schedule. That's not to say that some of this might not get compressed a little bit, maybe move a little bit faster in some areas. I think we gave ourselves 60 days at Planning Commission, and maybe that'll be necessary, maybe it will not. We'll have to wait and see. But I think March is really what we had talked about and what the board approved, and I think Tanglewood is full aware of that. So that's not really, I don't know that that'll change that much. So I really don't have anything else to add, and I'll be, again, happy to answer questions or
Members,
defer to
anything for
Aaron.
John?
I move we approve the plan and the letter that Herbie sent to the association as part of that motion, and that we adopt the final plan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Do we have any discussion? I plan to vote against this. My reason is the same as it's always been. Plant board expended at that location behind the reservoir. We've expended a great deal of money, engineering and construction, to build a badly needed, very functional electronic headquarters for our cable telecom. And part of that was a well-engineered and thought-out parking lot, which is adjacent to the building for our employees. And we spent all that money. And now, because of the minority of critics of what we've done, now the board is going to spend more money, our same customers' money, to tear down part of that structure. I don't think that's right. And the rest of the plan, I'm fine with. But I'm not for spending $1 of our customers' money to tear down a parking lot just because there's some unhappy people about it. That's my 2 cents. Any more discussion? If not, we'll call this by member. Vote yes is to approve the final plans and specs and send them on to P&Z. Vote no is to not approve the plans.
Member Cubine?
Yes.
Member Baldwin?
Yes.
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Rosen?
Yes.
Member Ludwig?
No. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, John, for outlining for us the next step on this to
Sir.
meet with the city. Okay. Next item is an information item, public comment period. Do we have anybody in the public wishes to care to speak tonight?
Yes, I think we do.
Yeah, but you're too.
Okay. We'll ask you, remind you that if you'll come to the podium and tell us your name and address and tell us whether or not you're a plant board customer. You do not have to be a plant board customer. We'll ask you if you'll keep your comments concise and to the point.
We'll try to do
Thank
that,
you.
sir. Thank you. I've been here several times. I think maybe I might have it down, but I am sort of prepared.
Okay.
My name is Kathy Warren, and I am a Frankfort Plant Board customer. And I do want to say I really like being a Frankfort Plant Board customer. Now, I may not sound like that all the time, but I truly am. I'm going to try to be really brief. I know you've got a lot on your plate. Thank you for allowing me to make this public comment tonight. I will try to be as brief as I can. Tonight, I would like to speak on the upcoming increase on the transmission fees. Unfortunately, yes, they do come about every 3 years. This is a tough call for all who is connected, us and you. I am not a computer person and don't understand how online stuff works. My husband and I have no choice but to watch cable TV. I really don't think we're alone on this issue. I sat down and looked at our State Journal TV guide to check on the duplicate channels. Yes, there are some, but there are differences. Our weather stations, our sports vary. Just looking at the TV guide, on the NFL there was 2 different games planned on CBS 506 and CBS 512. NBC Wave 3, NBC LAX 18. Did your Frankfort Plant Board's Cable Advisory Committee sit down and look at the TV guide that comes in Friday's State Journal? One thought, this advisory board, are they paid by Frankfort Plant Board? Are they non-paid members? Do they actually have our cable service, or do they watch online material? I think those thoughts should be taken into consideration when you all decide about these votes and the issues of the new transmission fee. I did take the online survey, and I did make some suggestions. I'm not interested in the skinny plan. My husband and I love our sports, NASCAR, pro football, Kentucky sports. Anything that's got a sports connected, we watch. While I don't like these increases, I don't want to lose any channels. I would hope that you as board members would help out your cable customers, find a way to add, not all, but some of these additional fees to ease our pain. After all, if you recall, the last increases that you passed, and I don't remember which ones they were, I do have it written down somewhere, there was money added to fund this building out of our pockets, out of all of our pockets. The Tanglewood issues added cost for your mistakes should not be affected cable customers or any other rate increases made in the future. Maybe an idea would be to add some incentives that would offer your classic cable customers the upgrades to preferred plan. Maybe lower the cost of the boxes or run a special and maybe box add-ins. One final thought. Meet with your great front-end gals. Especially, I'm going to toot somebody's horn and probably embarrass her, Michelle Early. She's my go-to person. She is magnificent. She listens to all of my questions and offers me advice, and sometimes I have to call her 2 or 3 times, and she's very patient with me. All the managers combined in this single room, they don't know more than she or her staff. They're quite frankly, they need to be sitting in here and maybe listening to some of these ideas or suggestions by customers. I charge their managers and directors to learn from them. Ask them what their thoughts are. It would help your customer service by large. I witnessed and heard one day while I was waiting in the waiting room, and I heard some awful things going on with a customer who talked down to the front end girls. It was pretty bad. But they handle themselves and get up on their feet, and they go on to the next person. I do want to mention, I think John maybe you brought this up, about paperless billing. John, you are very correct on your August billing. I get a paper billing and I check every single number, month to month, day to day, whatever, on my bill, and I can tell you I have that circled. So I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to. And another note, thank you to our guys, and if there's any girls that went down to Florida, yay. I don't know if you all go to your website and look how many times that the page was shared and how Frankfort residents were like cheering them on and praying. I know that our church was keeping our thoughts and prayers, and thank you all for letting that happen. That was a great thing to happen. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this important issues. You have a thankless job, and I do appreciate all that you do, especially times like this when I appear before you and discuss my opinions and suggestions. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Andy McDonald. I am a Frankfort Plant Board customer. I offer these comments in regards to the all requirements contract between the Frankfort Plant Board and the KyMEA on behalf of Envision Franklin County, of which I am a member. It has been over 3 months since the consultant from E3 presented her analysis of the all requirements contract. We appreciate the resolution that was passed providing detailed questions and requests to the KyMEA. We continue to review the KyMEA's response to your resolution. Their response has been informative and has helped clarify certain issues, but on the whole, they seemed unwilling to accommodate many of the concerns expressed in the Plant Board's resolution. While there have been efforts to shed light on the contract and clarify its terms, the fundamental concerns that we have with the contract remain to be addressed. We urge you to continue working to address the concerns raised by E3, by Envision Franklin County, and our consultants. Last year, when the board moved to hire an independent consultant, which led to hiring E3, you also committed to hiring independent legal counsel. We believe this remains a critical step to assist the plant board with achieving changes to the KyMEA contract that will benefit the plant board, its customers, and the other members of the KyMEA. We urge you to move ahead with hiring this independent counsel and pursuing the recommendations made by E3. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Nathan Van Sickle. I am a plant board customer. I live at 109 Reservoir Road. I am the president of the Tanglewood Neighborhood Association. And on behalf of the association, I would like to say thank you, particularly to Mr. Higginbottom, Mr. Bannister, Mr. Cubine for their work. We've had extra meetings, and from the neighborhood perspective, have found those meetings negotiating with the fence and the landscaping plan to be extremely helpful. And we'd also like to thank the board for allowing them to work with us on that, and thank you for your vote tonight. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? If not, action item 6, approve purchase of HFC Infrastructure amps and amplifiers, budgeted in fiscal year 18 at approximately $1,573,000.
Staff recommends the board approve the final wrong item, sorry. Staff recommends the board approve the purchase of the HFC infrastructure improvements for amps and line extenders. Staff had tentatively budgeted $1.573 million for the purchase of this equipment in this current budget on page 19, line 40, for a portion of the plant improvements. In a subsequent board meeting, staff plans, if this is approved tonight, staff plans to bring forward a bid contract for installation of this equipment. Staff has planned and budgeted for the replacement of these amps and line extenders since fiscal year 15. And this budgeted cost was included in the $9 million borrowed to fund the Headend construction and equipment improvements and approved by the board in November of 2014. As part of the Engineering Associates infrastructure improvement presentation last month, Engineering Associates also recommended the amp and LE improvements should be made immediately. The improvements are needed as listed there on page 5 to replace the end-of-life and obsolete amps so we can continue to serve our cable TV, broadband, and telephone customers. Many of these components are placed in service between 1999 and 2003, and quite frankly, they're just way beyond their life expectancy, and they need to be replaced. Number 2, to improve the signal quality of cable TV, broadband, and telephone to households would happen through the purchase of this equipment. The replacement equipment has a higher signal level capacity, and the quality will be better to the subscriber. Third, the replacement amps and LEs operate at a gigahertz, whereas the existing amps and LEs are at 750 megahertz, and this allows us access at the conclusion of the project to have an additional 250 megahertz of spectrum that FPB plans to utilize really to provide more internet capacity and faster internet speeds to the customers. We just kind of as a side note, we expect this project to take somewhere between 12 to 15 months to complete in all neighborhoods, provided everything went exactly according to plan. After the new amps and line extenders are installed, we'll have more spectrum to be able to provide additional internet access to the neighborhoods. And last, the upgrades to the amps and line extenders provides FPB more time to develop plans for a fiber to the premise design and extends the life of this plant. Adam Hellard and Wayne McDonald and all the other folks, Charlie Ballard, that have really been here almost from the beginning of this, as we put these as not as supervisors, as guys that just came to work every day and helped build this plant and have kept it up over the course of the last 17 years, have done a magnificent job making line extenders and amps last a lot longer than their life expectancy would ask for. So we ask to date that that the board approve this expenditure and we can move forward with these upgrades. And at this point, I've got some folks here to help me, and if we get too technical, because I'm not an engineer, and there's information on pages 137 and 138 that kind of outline the pieces and parts themselves, and some information about the type of failures we've had in those components over the course of the last 4 years. So at this point, I'd be happy to answer questions if you have them.
Yes, John, I looked at the report from, well, the report of August 4th, and in there it mentions 2.18 million for these upgrades.
Right.
And, but what you're asking for here is just the equipment, but not the manpower to do it?
Correct. On page 4 of the Executive Digest, toward the end of the first paragraph, I wrote that in a subsequent board meeting, staff plans to bring the award of a bid for the contract labor for the installation of this equipment. We've had some preliminary during the budget process. Back in the spring, we had some conversations with a couple of different companies that provide these types of services. We provided them with the amount of material we were looking at, and they have a little bit of an understanding of our network, and so they gave us some preliminary numbers of what we might expect to pay for that type of installation. Took that information, coupled it with the 1.57 million, and came up with that $2.1 million number that you're referencing there.
Okay.
So that this is just the equipment, and what you're talking about includes what we think might be the bid on the installation side.
So the difference between those two numbers is about 601,000?
Yeah, it was somewhere around $500,000. There was another item that's in that line item for the budget, and I had put aside I think $100,000 to clean up, scrape, and repaint the tower at the head end.
Oh.
That's also part of that same line item. So those three things make up that line item. So I think it's around 500 or so was our estimate, 500,000 on the
Right.
labor, about 100 grand on what we thought the bid might be to clean up that old tower, and the rest of it's here on the 1.573.
And all of this work that we'd put into the existing system would be lost essentially once we go to fiber to the home? It would,
I don't know that it would necessarily be lost. I guess
Well,
it would
it-
depend on.
wouldn't be used anymore?
I guess it would depend on what you want to do with the with cable TV and telephone service, and maybe lower levels of broadband service. I mean, I don't think we have an idea exactly what we're going to do today, 4 years, 6 years, 10 years from now on, especially cable TV and phone service. But there are a lot of cable operators out there today that are that have kind of drawn a line, basically, that says that if you want to go this speed on your cable modem and slower, you're going to stay on an HFC plan. And then if you want to go this speed or faster, then you're going to migrate over to the fiber to the home. That's one way of doing it. And so if we were to do it that way, and I'm not advocating one way or another, that'll be for somebody else to deal with. The plant is going to be in service for quite a bit of time, and it wouldn't require you, I think, to spend additional funds on the cable TV side more than anything on your plant over the course of the next decade or so.
Okay.
So I think you're providing yourself with options.
Okay.
I don't think it's a waste. I think it's providing yourself with more options.
Mhm. So kind of thinking along the line of continuing with two systems once we had fiber.
Yeah. I think most cable companies that are in our position are doing exactly that right now, and are taking a wait and see approach to see where cable TV is. I wish I had a better crystal ball than the one I have today, because I really do not know where. And I think we talked about this at length here about a couple of Mondays ago, of where we think cable TV is going to be 2022, 23, 24. It's hard to say, but making the investment now, it really allows you to take another look and see where this industry is 6 or 7 or 8 years from now.
And what is our current ratio of fiber, or well, internet users to cable?
We have, give or take,
Sure.
14,400 broadband subscribers.
Okay.
What page is this on, Harvey? This is a report that's in your board package.
Oh,
So we
okay,
can
then
be
I missed
exact.
it.
I forget exactly what page it's on. We've got about 12,000. Page 143.
Okay.
So that gives you cable TV subscribers about 12,000 and change, and broadband's going to be about 14,000 and something, but I think it's page 143 will tell you that.
Okay, and of course, internet's growing and cable is going down.
That's accurate.
Okay.
That's accurate.
And I think one of the things, John, we've talked about, I know I've asked you some questions about, and David, you've looked at is, and the thing I don't have a good handle on now at all, just my own perspective is, I think we can identify what we think we believe customers will want. But I think we, in terms of going forward in the future, what customers will actually buy is, that price point is what's, people want a lot of things, but when they actually come to open their wallet, what will they actually pay for?
That's when we're looking at, we've done several financial models looking at internally. We're at work paper status. We haven't put them out for poking and prodding just yet. But when you look at the HFC plant and the way that the Engineering Associates Kim Kersey report lays out, it's talking about two different systems. And when you look at it, the HFC plant is actually what is going to pay for fiber to the home if we go the route that this report's talking about. We looked at different financial models. We look at what kind of savings would there be from this having two different plants. And there is really no savings. So what is the return on your investment? And it's incremental growth of revenue from customers choosing to go to higher speeds at a higher price. And then when you look at take rate, who is going to buy the product? You look at most of your customers now are in the 10 megabit range. Are they going to be willing to jump to a higher speed? More performance, higher price, but yes, that's definitely the concern. With the investment of the HFC plant, I look at it as giving us, I don't know if you want to call it insurance, but it gives us time to move as fast as we can generate cash. The way that I am approaching this, I'm very conservative on future debt load and would like to try to work, if any fiber project is to go forward, to do it as we can pay for cash. In the budget today, we have $2 million per year. We have $1.5 million per year. I think we could actually get, if we wanted to push it, $2.5 million per year cash invested into this if you want to go forward. 2022, we pay off the primary FSN note. You could then move to $5 million per year. So you could move, and with taking it slowly, rolling it out to neighborhoods, see what it looks like. If it's what we think, if the take rate is not as good as we like, you can always pull back, slow down, speed up, whatever you want. But I think what the reinvestment does is gives us options. It does.
Isn't the discussion also about quality of service and quality of product and stability, not just ROI? I mean, we have, and then also the discussions in there about, is in there about customer retention, which, the Engineering Associates guys leaned on a lot, and that I think informed a lot of their decision to suggest we move into this faster versus slower to be able to be in a position to retain those customers as we move forward.
I think when I went to an NCTC, our cooperative that goes together and buys programming, one of the things that stood out to me at the conference was the amount of vendors that were there pushing and discussing new technologies with HFC. You have a lot of companies across this country, billions of dollars invested in HFC plant just like ours. And they're working and doing everything they can to get as much performance out of the system because they don't want to go and overbuild on themselves, and they're concerned about the same thing we are, is having people pay for it. So I think there's no doubt that the future and the exponential increase in the amount of data people use is real. How quickly that moves, we've just talked about the demographics of our community, that we have an aging population. With this investment, we have the ability to see and take things as we need to. I don't think we have an issue in the near future of capacity issues. I think my understanding with this investment, you could push some pretty serious speeds to customers that wanted them. We rolled out a 100 megabit service, and I think we have about a 2% take rate today. So out of our 14,400 customers, we have around 240 or so that have taken it. So today, looking at that, I don't see the need to move as quick. Now that's up for debate, I'm sure. But when you're looking at the numbers, you're looking at the financial health of the company, you're looking at how do we pay for it. That's the way we're moving right now.
Yeah, but again, don't we think there's a significant we have a significant responsibility to provide a quality of service as well, right? It's not just about offering a higher bandwidth, which I agree, that's not necessarily where we should be headed, but we should have a significant concern on uptime, reliability of service, consistency of service, and there's some significant challenges with the HFC network.
I think my understanding of these investments, the extenders and line amps
Yeah.
that have been out there for some of them almost 20 years, that investment in changing those will actually increase
Yeah.
the service reliability and service quality to customers today. So that is taking care, I think, of a concern that you have.
It addresses it to some extent. I think, getting off of the copper and into the fiber addresses it better. But a bigger concern about, this allocation is not whether or not we should improve the service. I think clearly we should. Most of those repairs are, years late in being done. But I am concerned about spending the money wisely and being, judicious about it. And, as those conversations have gone on, a week or so ago we had a number floating around internally that, somewhere in the $300,000, $400,000 range would support the upgrades that we need and would put us in a stable position to be able to get to the fiber infrastructure and mitigate any of those concerns long term. So, how do you reconcile? A week ago we're at $300,000 to $400,000, and now we're back at 1.5. Monday last week we were at 1.7.
Sure. I'd be glad to answer that. We're talking about, when we were at the last meeting, we had a DA report was covered, and there was a general consensus or feeling I had whenever I know Mr. Cubine talked about, do we have time, that we need to maybe move this forward. So we come back, we have a month to think about it, to work on it. We're like, well, it gets the feeling that there's maybe some feelings that we should move quicker. So if we move quicker, what does that look like? I'm like, well, I know, Mr. Baldwin doesn't want to invest, or at least wants to spend the money wisely. What can we do as some kind of concession or some type of agreement that we could kind of split down the middle? If we move faster, I think there was an agreement that we can't invest nothing into the system, that we would invest $300,000-$400,000 to go out, change a couple of nodes, get the equipment as spares, so if some went down, the schedule would be compressed, and that we could basically limp to getting a fiber network up. After talking about it, looking at it, discussing having two different networks, looking at paying this back, just on some initial estimates I've done, looking at, you've got a couple different things. How many customers are you going to have? What's the take rate going to be? At what rate is the take rate going to be? Looking at and playing with the numbers, we're looking at just the payback at 25 to 40 years, depending on how aggressive you get. We're not talking about return on investment, we're talking return of investment at that point. So that's where that number came from, was looking at, can we condense it, can we do it, trying to think of a way to move quicker, and really at the end of the day decided that the best way to go, and to not box us into a timeline, into a debt load up front, that was the way with this recommendation to go.
Yeah. And it also seems like there's two components here to me. There's one, where we're thinking about expanding service, moving to 100 meg, moving to faster speeds. And then there's another discussion about getting the network stable, being able to provide a quality product. And it seems those two are getting mixed together here. And all along through all these discussions, I've repeatedly asked for, some kind of, breakdown of that data, what that replacement, this is actually less for you than more for these guys, what that replacement path would look like, what that spares inventory would have to be, what that failure rate is, and I still don't have that data in front of me, and it's been 6 months, and all this flows into my biggest concern with all this is it wasn't too many months ago we were being told that there were no service issues in the HFC plant, and that the concerns that were being raised by customers were, I believe one of the quotes was, our customers were spoiled, and all of that gives me deep concerns about, the quality of the direction we're going.
Well, I can say on my own behalf that I've talked about this upgrade since 2014, and I don't think I've changed one iota in anything I've said all the way along. Spent quite a bit of time watching a lot of videos today, kind of anticipating the question you just put out there, and looking at the June meeting, which was really June 2017 was the last time we really talked about this. I reviewed it today, and I didn't see the question for this information. The information was requested by you last Monday, and it's on page 138. Adam cranked it out
Well,
in 2
that's
days.
still not the data I've been asking for. I mean, that's a list of equipment and a list of customer service calls, but it doesn't give us that bigger trend that gets us to that $300,000, $400,000 range. What are our failure rates? How do we split that out between expanding service
Well,
and shoring up service?
I can tell you, we spent a tremendous amount of time and money running trouble calls because of 15, 16, 17-year-old equipment. So,
I don't think there's any doubt that, we need to do something to address it. I mean, the bigger point here is that, I don't want to be spending more money to have us an old technology for a longer time. I don't want that to be a headwind for us moving forward and providing quality service to our customers.
I recognize that, and we have 18 payments left, 18 quarterly payments left to pay off this initial FSN loan. And if we cannot provide quality service, starting to, improving on the service we have today, all the way through those last 18 payments, we're not going to be able to have a customer base to move over to a fiber to the home. So, it's something I think that we need to continue to kind of look at. At the end of the day, I've spent 23 years here. I've done my best every single day to do the best I can to make the best decisions that I can. Some folks that designed this network more than 20 years ago. The world has changed dramatically in these last 20-some years. And I want to thank my coworkers for working their butts off to keep this system up and running. There are millions and millions and millions of subscribers on HFC plants around the United States. There are probably about 110 million subscribers. Of those 110 million subscribers, about 80 million of them are on HFC plants. Every single one of them worth their salt has made exactly the same upgrades that we have either made or we're proposing here. I stand with the industry as far as the upgrades that we're proposing today. That's all I know. That's what I've learned. That's what I'm going to advocate today. You are more than welcome to vote it up or down. I'm giving you the best advice I can.
I think we need to move on this. We've got a long agenda tonight. Do we trust staff and their expertise and everything, or don't we? Do we have a motion?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of HFC Infrastructure amps and amplifiers, cost approximately $1.573 million.
Do we have a second?
I seconded.
We have a second. Discussion. Okay, we'll call for it by member. A vote yes is to approve the purchase of this. A vote no would be to not. Okay.
Member KyMEA,
Yes.
Member Baldwin,
No.
Member Green,
Yes.
Member Rosen,
No.
Member Ludwig,
Yes. What was that, 3?
Thank you.
3-2 passed. Okay. Okay, motion carries. Next item is an information, this is our information, monthly information departmental reports.
Hello. Before I get started with presentation from Public Information, I've been asked this afternoon just to go over the website comments. We just had one, I believe, which was asking if it was possible to put the information that we do during the meetings on some kind of like e-meeting structure, so that people who are at home watching can see, like when you're talking about the financials, that they can see the financials come up. And so if that's something you all are interested in doing, we can talk about it. I think our guys in media services have looked into the e-meeting format. And if that's something you're all interested in doing, then we'll get our IT guys in on this as well and pursue that.
Kathy, to understand that would be so that people viewing the meeting could see whatever's on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, again, like if it's anything that we front loaded, I think when we make presentations, because a lot of times people who are watching the the meetings from home on YouTube or on Cable 10, they just hear that you're referring to page 143 or whatever. So if it's something that we can project on the screen, then it's something that they can see. So we can look into that if y'all are interested. Good?
Mhm.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So I will start with, we've already talked about it a little bit. Our guys went to Florida. So I've put together just some pictures for y'all to see in case you haven't been following us on social media. We've had 6 guys from our electric department go to Clewiston, Florida. It's July Taylor, Stephen Riddle, Michael Colligan, David Ritterkoff, Andrew Pollard, and Supervisor Michael Aldridge. So they left on Sunday, September 10th, very early that morning, and headed down to Clewiston. I think they spent the night in northern Florida Sunday night. Then once they headed down the next morning, had trouble finding gas. I think a lot of the evacuees had taken up all the gas as they were trying to get out of Florida, and our guys were going in. But they finally got there, and I'll just go through some of this. They got busy doing some pole change outs. They were re-energizing some of the 3-phase lines, and I don't know what any of that means, but I know it was got the power back. And just removing trees. That was on the way there. They ran into some debris in the road, but here's some of the debris they saw and things they were fixing. Homes. They were very busy, and I know they had a lot of people thank them for the work that they did. They also went outside of the boundaries of the reasons why they were there, but we've been posting things on social media, so somebody reached out to us on social media and said she'd been trying to reach her sister and was not having any luck, and and she lives in Clewiston, and they saw that we were there, so was there any way we could go check on her? So we did, and she was okay. But she was at a place where they still didn't have, she lived out of the town, and they still didn't have power yet, and someone was checking on her and taking her food and water and staying with her and making sure that she was fine. But she was just so happy that somebody came to check on her, and then her sister, who had contacted us through Facebook, was very glad to hear that we checked in on her and she was fine, and couldn't believe that somebody would do that. So I was so thankful to our crew, especially Mike Aldridge. He's been great, sending me pictures and doing anything I asked him to do. So very happy about that. So then on Friday they went to Florida. They went to Homestead, where there was significantly more damage, and they've been very busy. They've been changing out a lot of poles, setting new poles, and they found that very difficult to do because under there they have a lot of coral in the ground. So they've had a hard time doing that, but they've been busy, and I think they're coming home this weekend. So we expect them home either Saturday or Sunday.
Kathy, did they coordinate with the other groups that came from or went from Kentucky, Owensboro, and?
We caravanned with
Okay.
Berea.
Okay.
And I think, because they went with us and worked in Clewiston with us, I think like a crew from Paducah was in Homestead the whole time. So it's just wherever you get assigned. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about, just to let our customers know that our work in Florida does not affect our customer rates at all. We had several comments about worried that it was gonna affect the rates, that we were spending money down in Florida when we do spending it here, but it's because we're part of a mutual aid network through our Kentucky Municipal Utilities Association, and they assigned us where we were going to be going based on the need, and just rapidly makes those resources available for the people in need, and it keeps other outside entities from price gouging. So we were happy to be a part of it. I know they've had a very rewarding experience, and like you were saying, excuse me, Frankfort has just really supported us, especially on social media. We've been following their journey. Just on the first post that we did alone of the crew leaving, we had, nearly 1,500 reactions, which are likes or loves or smiley faces or whatever, 229 comments, all but 2 positive, which is great, and 437 shares of that one post, which made our total reach for that one post nearly 125,000. So we've been following every day. We've been updating on what the crews are doing. Mike's been sending pictures as he could get them or was able to send them because of cell service. So it's just something that, it's been a great thing for our guys, and we were proud of all of them. And I know that all of our linemen volunteered to go and wanted to go, that we could only send 6. So that included, I think, 2 bucket trucks, a digger truck, and pickup truck. So we're very proud of them.
And Kathy, you may want to mention that Frankfort will be reimbursed for all of our expenses.
Yes. Yeah. We'll be reimbursed for all of our expenses. I think Clewiston and Homestead, they pay the tab on that, and then it's up to FEMA as to how much they get reimbursed for that. I also did my September column this month for the State Journal on just our guys going there, and an explanation of what mutual aid is and how it works. Last thing I'm going to say is that we did have a field trip to Louisville Water, and we met with Kelly Daring-Smith and got a tour of the museum at the water tower and the Crescent Hill water treatment plant. It was very informative. Kelly is very gracious to lend her expertise, and we got a lot of great ideas. We have a meeting set for the water squad tomorrow to really hit the ground running. So.
Do our guys get reimbursed for the meals?
Yes. Do they? Okay. They have, their expenses. And the other thing is that we've had the water monsters out the past 2 weekends. Last weekend at the Fall Arts Festival at Josephine Sculpture Park, and just this past weekend at Aviation Day at the Capital City Airport.
You might want to mention, since we have Mr. Miller here, about what went on last night.
Oh, well, evidently our bucket trucks were were needed on the Singing Bridge. So we had someone who decided to climb the bridge, and so our local emergency responders requested a bucket truck so that we could help retrieve her. So that's what happened.
Thank you, Kathy.
Uh-huh.
Anything else in departmental reports tonight?
I don't think there's anything major, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All righty, on to number 8, action item. Consider scheduling public hearing relating to a promotional one-time $5 credit for customers converting to paperless electronic billing.
Yes, Mr. Ludwig. This item is really all around trying to get more people to subscribe to paperless billing. Some of you may remember that we're on the board September 2015. I brought this item to the board. I brought it in a little different way. It was a 60-cent fee for a paper bill. So if you received a paper bill, you were charged a paper bill fee. The board at that time did not want to go that direction and wanted to look at maybe something more of an incentive or some other way to positively encourage people as opposed to pricing it in. You know, it's worth saying that our rates are set to recuperate all of our expenses. So either you pay for a paper bill fee through your rates, or you could specifically pull it out and go that route. That's the most cost accounting way to make sure that the person driving the cost pays the cost. In this case, I've taken, Mr. Cubine, your suggestion of a $5 one-time credit. You're looking at what would be enough to encourage someone to move to paperless billing. I have some information in the board packet, and I do not have the page number. If anybody can tell me what that is, but it is in the board packet. It's customer billing statistics.
171.
171, thank you. Just throwing it out there on how many paper bills we send out per year. We average around 26,200 paper bills per month. That's just under 315,000 paper bills per year. And all of you out there that get paper bills know that due to the amount of services we have, your bills are 2, 3, 4 pages long. So when you look at the amount of paper bills, and then you look at, we are just under $246,000 we spent last year on paper bills. So you do the math and you look, you have first notices, your first bill that go out, and then you have second notices for those that have yet to pay. When you look at it and you average those together, it's about 66 cents per paper bill we send out. Breaking it down a little further, it's around 67 cents for the first bill, around 59 cents for the second bill. So the idea is that people that would come over and subscribe, sign up for paperless billing will get a one-time $5 credit. You're looking at about an 8-month payback on that. Someone would need to stay paperless for about 8 months to recoup that $5. This is one way to go about it, but just really asking for a public hearing for the next regularly scheduled board meeting to just discuss this further. At that time, if board approves, I'd be glad to go through a demonstration of how you sign up for paperless billing and anything else you might want to cover.
And this would be a one-time credit per customer per address?
This will be I put in the digest some basic parameters for looking at this. One of the thoughts is that it would be definitely per customer. You might have some people that have multiple accounts, and this will be a per customer credit. So if you have 3 different accounts, you just get one $5 credit. We also looked at possibly people trying to not encourage people to play the game with getting the credit that you would have, kind of like when you issue a dividend, that you have as of September 19th, this meeting. Anyone that's paperless today will not be eligible for the credit. That's just an idea. We talked about looking at how long this would go. We monitored this month to month. Initial thoughts would go about the payback period and see what the net change is in paperless billing. Today we have, to do this, you would have to go into the customer portal. If you go to the FPB homepage in the upper left, it says My Account. You click there, and that's how you go to sign up. There currently today are around 9,400 customers on the portal. We saw a huge jump in the participation in the portal when we issued or rolled out the free e-check. You could go on, schedule your payment, enter your routing and account number, and pay your bill that way. Free service. That was a huge driver to the site. But out of those 9,400 customers, we have under 2,100 that get paperless billing, so around 22%. So we're looking to drive that. At the same time, for every person we're not sending a paper bill to, it's less cost FPB pays. And for those that, consider the environment, less paper is a good thing. So that's just something that we want to throw out there and encourage people. In the future, we look to use that portal to communicate, outage management, things of that nature. So anyone we can have come to the portal is a great thing. You can see all of your past bills. You can get a lot of information in there. So it's another way to get people to the portal. Also, the main reason is to reduce the amount of paper and cost that we use in paper billing. So I guess what we're asking for is a public hearing to review and discuss this credit.
I move that we set a public hearing on this subject for our concurrent with our next regular board meeting, which is October
20th, I believe.
fairly early in the month, actually. But that's the motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, I would like to propose that we pay everyone the $5 who is on paperless billing, including ones who already are, because those are people that'll go out and talk to their neighbors and relatives and say, hey, it's great, this is why I do it. And by paying them or giving them the credit as well, we encourage them to get others to buy into the system.
We can discuss that at the public hearing.
Well, I just wanted to put that
Yeah,
out
okay, good.
for people to start thinking about.
I always hate to disagree with David. But I think the people that are used to getting a paper bill, writing a check and putting it in the mail, would not change if you gave them $50 instead of $5.
Well, my husband is kind of that way, and I brought up the points that David had brought up about what it costs and payback period, and I was able to actually convince Richard.
I understand the cost. I understand the cost of Frankfort Plant Board, but I just think human nature is not going to accept it for $5.
One thing we want to bring up is that you can print out your bill yourself through the portal. So that's something that if you are an internet user and you like paper, you can hit the print button and have that. So.
Also, if the $5 isn't motivation enough, what's the downside?
The downside is you're looking at a maximum of around 22,000 customers that receive at least one service from us. So you're looking at around $110,000 potential credit. We haven't put, there's discussion, if people do not, if they switch back to paper in the 8-month period, payback period, do you ask and charge the $5 back because they didn't stay. Or if you move back, you get a 66-cent paper bill fee for coming back. Based on my last experience with this agenda item, I didn't think that would fly, but this is definitely up for debate, for tweaking. The main goal is to get people to the portal to use paperless billing.
My bigger question was that there's really no, if people don't actually take the advantage, there's no downside to this.
If they don't take it, no, you run the risk of people gaming the system somewhat, but
I don't think for $5 there's going to be much arbitrage here.
you wouldn't think so. But
Well, we've had a motion and a second, still on discussion. But we can have this public hearing and bat it around some more. So we'll have this, all in favor of this public hearing, concurrent with our next regular scheduled meeting. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. So we'll schedule. Alrighty. Number 9 is an action item. Consider amendment to the job classification and compensation plan to reclassify one position in information technology. Good evening, Diane.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We currently have a vacancy in our IT department. It's the GIS administrator position due to a retirement. And the department has reviewed and updated the position description. And based on the job evaluation of the updated description, we're recommending a reclassification of the position from grade 109 to 113. The new grade reflects the position's increased responsibilities related to GIS and the required technical knowledge, skills, and abilities to perform the job. Copy of the job description is included in the board package. I think also Kathy provided you with a marked up version so you can see specifically what changed in the position. The vacancy is the result of Amy Derringer, a long-time employee. She was in this position for pretty much her entire career with the plant board, just about 27 years. And we would like to hire someone with an education and work background in GIS to help compensate for the loss of her experience. There are quite a few changes in the assigned duties and also in the education and experience requirements that you'll notice on the job description. And also this is a overall higher level of responsibility for the position. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Do we have anybody in mind for the position? Are we hiring somebody internally, or where's that search set?
We'll post the position and it'll be open for current employees to apply. I personally don't know of anyone that has expressed an interest or.
So it'll be posted internal and external.
Probably we would do that.
Is there any reason we might wait as we're doing the overall reorganization? Are there any thoughts around why it would be prudent to wait and incorporate that in the bigger reorganization process?
I guess that's something that we could do. I'd have to defer to the department. I don't know what the, how they're managing right now without Amy, because she has left as of the end of August, so I know they're shorthanded. So I know they're pretty anxious probably to get the position filled.
This is a real technical job. Is it going to be very specialized? Maybe possibly hard to find someone who's going to fit, do you think?
I think it may be difficult to fill the position, but we'll need to, advertise and try to recruit someone.
What's the difference between the grade 109 and 113?
As far as the starting salary, let's see. The starting salary for the 109 is $21.53 an hour, and the 113 is $28.78 an hour.
$14,000 a year.
Do we motion?
I move we approve the item number 9 to reclassify the position.
Second.
Motion second, discussion.
I just had one question. We are looking at reorganization, and what is the time schedule for that, roughly? Is there one?
I don't think there is a time schedule. I think I indicated I would like to get that done before the end of the year, but I think we're on a much shorter schedule than that. I think we'll probably have an org schedule to the board in October.
Okay. From your perspective, do you think we should wait on this or just get started on it?
I would proceed. I don't think the reorganization, the only thing that might change would be who the position reports to, but in general,
Okay.
we're still looking for an individual with certain skills, and I think the long-term plan is an individual that can start up and lead an entire GIS department, which may, 15 years down the road be 3 or 4 or 5 people. We need that individual with executive leadership skills.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is a department that will emerge in the future and a larger, more important group.
Well, with AMI deployment, GIS is
Yeah.
more and more important.
But we're still in discussion on this. Any more discussion, members? If not, vote yes is to approve this job classification compensation plan. Vote no would be to not approve it. Kathy?
Member Keeban?
Yes.
Member Baldwin?
Yes.
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Rosen?
Yes.
Member Ludwig?
Yes. Motion carries. And thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
The next 3 action items, numbers 10, 11, and 12, are all somewhat routine, so to speak. They all deal with purchase of electrical equipment, transformers, so forth, and all subjects have been, where there has been bids solicited. And these are all Mr. Edmonds and Mr. McCullough's items, and they appear to me to be able to be treated as a group. With that in mind, let's hear what Mark has to say.
Okay. This transformer there, staff sent this to 8 vendors, 7 responded. And this recommendation is for the lowest transformer cost with the one that meets our specifications. It'll be used to replenish inventory. We don't keep a whole lot of this type of transformer. But we use one we need to replace. One takes a long time to get it. So, and it's recommended we purchase it from Cape Electric for $35,712.
Okay. Any comments on the other 2 items? Travis?
Good evening, everyone. As you mentioned, action item number 11 is a bid award for 3 15 kV breakers. This is a capital budgeted item. There's $84,700 in the budget for this item. And the award recommendation is for Siemens Industry Inc. for $56,190. This is to replace existing substation equipment. If you like, I'll go on to number 12 is a bid award number 1645 for 69 kV switches to Royal Switchgear Manufacturing for $20,900. Royal was a low bid on that one. This is again an existing substation equipment. There's $46,200 in the capital budget for this item. Scott is not here tonight. I can do the filter press as well if you like.
That's number 13 on the agenda.
Yes, sir. Action
Yes.
item number 13
Yes, please do.
is a bid award number 1646 for an online transformer filtration system to Philmax Inc. in the amount of $23,987.25. As you'll see in the budget, this is on page 20, line 335. This will come out of the equipment budget, which has $125,000 in it. Basically, the filtration system is intended to remove moisture out of the oil. Of course, the oil is the kind of the lifeblood of the transformer, if you will. I think that was all of mine. Happy to answer any questions.
Members, all of these items were a result of bids solicited. It's all for equipment.
I make a motion to accept the bids for item 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed say no. Hearing no no's, the motion carries. Number 14, review of Corix references for contract meter reading.
Yes, sir. As a follow-up to the meter reading agreement between Corix Utility Services and FPB, we've contacted additional references. Those reference checks should be provided to you in tab number 13. I was just doing a little extra due diligence to ensure that we've recommended a quality vendor to provide these services. If there's any additional questions, we're presenting this as an information item, but if there's some discussion, I'll do my best to answer any questions.
It said in the board packet that two of the three past customers said they would rehire Corix. Do any of the three still have services with Corix? And we know why the one wasn't interested in re-engaging Corix? Or Corix, I'm not sure. The one that said they would not rehire Corix, they didn't specifically indicate why. They just said they weren't exactly satisfied. I think it was communication was their main concern. They didn't feel like Corix checked in with them enough, but they didn't really expand on that a whole lot. They just said they weren't really satisfied and probably would not rehire him. It's discouraging. I would have to admit that's not the. I really had to hound Austin Energy to give me their reply, and it wasn't exactly positive. But
Well,
we know if the other-
that was Austin Energy that indicated they wouldn't hire them back, and it seemed like the reference indicated it was based on other contract managers' comments. But it's good to note in page 10 of 30 of Corix's response that Corix read Austin Energy's meters from 2001 through 2017. So for 16 years, they read Austin Energy's meters.
Along that lines of the communication, it talks a lot in the Corix documentation. They spend a lot of time training for safety and problems and that types of things. I didn't see any discussion there about training for customer engagement and communication and those more soft skills. And I guess I have some concerns there, given that our meter readers are going to be out in front of our customers a great deal.
I had some conversation earlier today, kind of along those same lines, with Alan, who's, I think he's a VP of their operations. He's our main contact point at Corix, and he indicated their process. Obviously, we included in the tab section there some of the training, but we discussed as well a little bit about how they have their quality control standards, if you will. Their intention, if awarded this contract, would be to have 3 or 4 readers that would be assigned to us. One of those people would be a sort of field supervisor, if you will. Given the size of the contract, they would also probably be doing reads, but they would be sort of the in-house supervisor. That person would also report to staff internally. They would also have the backup support of Corix. I think their corporate is in Wisconsin, or maybe it was in Florida. I can't remember exactly. I think it's definitely a big concern. It's definitely a legitimate concern, but I would also point out that it appeared to me, especially the companies that were happy with the Corix service, really seemed to indicate anytime there was a customer complaint that they really handled those well, especially the Gwinnett County, Georgia, and the Long Beach response. So I think that was really a high point as far as some of the other utilities we talked to. It's obviously a big concern being in customers' yards, no doubt there.
Do we have any sense of what the contractors will actually be paid and how that relates to what we're currently paying our employees?
I did not ask exactly how much they would be paying their employees. We defined a scope of work. You have this many meters to read. Well, how much are you going to charge us to pay them? I don't know exactly what they pay their employees. No.
Could I ask you one question, Travis?
Yes,
About
sir.
it's actually in the pricing assumptions. And I just noticed when I was looking through this today, on number 18 in the pricing assumptions, what is the normal hours for our meter readers to work? I mean, is it traditional 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday?
Yes, that is the traditional hours. I think they work quite a bit of overtime. I don't know, maybe.
The only reason I asked is number 18 basically says, language says, Corix assumes that work hours can be determined at Corix's discretion for efficient deployment. And I assume we don't have anybody running around anybody's yard at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, or on a Sunday morning, or, and I assume.
There is one on call all the time. There is a one meter reader on
But in
call.
terms of doing normal reader,
No, I think it's usually for an issue at that point.
right,
I do like that language, though, from an IRS standpoint. That makes a clear separation as a contractor versus
Mhm.
employee, so
Mhm.
I like that.
but I mean, the only concern I have is just, I think from our own customers, I think they wouldn't expect to see somebody working for the plant board in their yard late at night.
Only if my understanding, not being a supervisor of meter reading, but having dealt with them, payroll, things of that nature, that they would only be out in that time of night with an issue.
Okay,
So, no, it's not regular course of business to be reading meters past 3:30 in the afternoon, unless there's, I don't know if that goes for large power, but I think the general answer is no.
would they let us know if they decide to go to, because based on, just correct me if I'm wrong, based on this, nothing would stop them from saying, rather than working an 8 to 4, we're gonna work a noon to 9. We wouldn't have any say on whether.
They are required to provide daily reads to us
Mhm.
at the close of business every day. I think it would be hard for them to justify that request, given.
But would they have to come to you and get that request? Or could they just do that at their discretion?
I wouldn't think so. I would probably want to refer to the contract document a little further on that to be certain. I think that the understanding of the contract is their field service people will work alongside our field service people and report to our meter reading supervisor daily to provide those daily reads. So I don't envision that would be very likely, aside from, as David mentioned, you could be at somebody's house for a reconnect
Sure.
at night, but that's I guess I should say that wasn't the intention, our intention, and our understanding of the contract.
If the board felt inclined to award the contract, Hans and I would like the motion to be made awarding the contract subject to the contract and certificates of insurance being acceptable to the staff attorney. And we can certainly, add language in the contract related to work hours.
Or anything, just something even general, that if they choose to deviate from what has been our normal practice in terms of how we operate, they need to let somebody know before they start doing it. For us to be able to say, that's just not gonna work for us.
Right. Corix has made some red lines in the sample contract that we sent to them, so we know if there's going to be an executed contract, the contract's going to be negotiated somewhat, and this could certainly be discussed.
And that, like I said, that just jumped out when I was looking through it today, and I just thought, it was so vague, it just kind of, I can't imagine why somebody'd be out in the middle of the night wanting to read meters in the dark, but I would think that would scare some of our people as to what's going on.
Concerning the contract, I have some questions. Last time we voted to go ahead with the contract with Corix, but then we found out that we didn't have quite all of the information. So, and that the contract has not been given to Corix. So are we really discussing here whether we want to go with outside firm or with hiring employees into the plant board?
We brought this back to the board to provide the board with more information, and also the staff would like a little clearer direction from the board. It seemed like during the board presentation and after the board meeting, there was some concern from board members that perhaps we could have a contract with a third party, but at the same time we could hire our vacancies in the meter reading department. And staff would like a clear direction for the board to either go with a third party or us to rehire our existing staff, get our existing staff levels up, because we don't feel like it's good business practice to engage a third party and then 3 or 6 months tell them, you know, we're back at staff level, we don't need you anymore.
Well, this contract actually talks about a 98% level of what they bid.
Yeah, that's.
It's what they can count on.
Yes, that's exactly right. They, you know, a particular amount, so you,
I saw the 98% jumped out at.
yes, sir.
So I think what Herbie, you are saying is that we should revote on whether we want to go with Corix.
I think so. I think we would like a more clear direction. Does the board, are they comfortable with a third-party meter reading service, or would they prefer us to continue reading in-house and fill our vacancies and perhaps not go with a third party? There seemed to be concern, and we don't want to hire a third party and then 3 or 6 months later tell them, you know, we want to change the scope of the contract. I don't think that's the way to do business.
Well, then possibly I should make a motion that we vote on whether we want to stay with in-house hiring or go to an outside source.
I think I'd like to see the motion of, do you want to stay in-house or go with Corix? I think we've decided, our recommendation is still to go with Corix.
Good, I amend my motion to, do we want to hire Frankfort plant employees or do we want to go with Corix? That's the question.
Well, the motion's gonna have to have one of those be a positive.
Oh,
We don't have a motion yet, do we?
I don't think so.
But,
I mean, maybe I can take a run at it. I mean, you know, I've had some pretty serious concerns with, you know, what we're doing here as far as outsourcing this. I mean, we see, you know, we have a good experience with what happened with the NOC when we outsourced the NOC, and we certainly, you know, didn't get the level of the similar level of customer service with that move. And I'm concerned about, you know, swapping out, you know, well-paid jobs that we have on staff with jobs that are most likely to be not as well-paid and lower benefits and, you know, detrimental to the community. And then the current concerns I have for, you know, any deterioration in quality of service, whether it's all the things we've discussed here today. So I guess I would move that we direct staff to not enter into the contract with Corix and to begin the hiring process to bring on staff back up and bring on meter readers.
I second it.
okay, we have a motion to, not to do the contract with Corix, but to resume with hiring for the,
Can you ask a question at this point?
do we have a second yet?
I did, I
Oh, we
second
have a
it.
second, okay. Ready for discussion?
I guess this would be, Diane, have you seen anything that makes you feel like we're going to be more successful in recruiting and retaining meter readers for the next several years?
Well, if our intention is that we will bring on temporary staff, because we're still going to utilize the AMI technology, so we'll be downsizing eventually the meter readers. Is that my understanding? That's correct. I think that's going to present a challenge because the temporary people that we would hire, you know, they may work temporarily for several months, but then a lot of times when people are doing that, they're also looking for a regular full-time job with benefits where they can work, you know, indefinitely.
But we would be hiring people in for a 4-year term, right? I mean, isn't that our expectation for these jobs? So it's hardly temporary. I mean, 4 years is a fairly reasonable stretch.
And I guess,
If we're just hiring meter readers, you know, indefinitely, I think though eventually if we do downsize within a whatever period, then those people are going to want to either transfer internally or find jobs where they're not being downsized.
Because I guess my not confusion, but I guess when we first had this discussion about going with a private firm, it was based on what I believe was our situation, that we were having trouble recruiting and retaining meter readers, and because they pretty much realized it was not a long-term position, that was going to be an ongoing problem, and this was a way to stabilize that function.
Our concern was the turnover that we felt like we're gonna see, because they'll come in and immediately want to apply for a position somewhere else in the company if they know their department is gonna be downsized. My thought in trying to address that issue is interdepartmental transfers requires a GM signature, and to let new hires know coming in that interdepartmental transfers will not be approved by the GM. But as AMI is deployed and fewer meter readers are needed, then the GM would sign interdepartmental transfers at that time, but not until, there was enough AMI deployment that we could reduce the meter reading staff.
Because right now, our current situation is not acceptable, right? Because we're borrowing people from other departments
That's correct.
and having moved in there, and those jobs are remaining open. In fact, we're using people who are being paid at a higher level anyway to go in and do this work.
Correct.
But two of the people that left the department left for other jobs within the company, so it's been a good position for people to start
No, but
out.
right now, to fill the vacancies of the ones
Right,
we have open.
that's right.
We're having to use people
Yes.
from elsewhere in the company
Right,
to
that's
do
right.
these jobs, so those jobs are sitting open.
Have we advertised these positions yet at all?
No, sir.
So we don't have any sense of what the fill rate would be?
The what rate?
We don't have any sense of what the fill rate would be, of response rate, and how fast we get somebody hired?
No, sir, we'd put it on the front burner. I feel confident that we can get staff hired. It's just a question of how long will they stay, and I'm confident we can get the positions filled.
What's a meter reader, what's the entry salary for one, Diane?
The entry salary for meter readers, I don't know right off, do you remember hands? I can try to find it. Yeah.
Well, staff really, they want the board to either fish or cut bait. They want to know, do we want to go one way or the other? And maybe we should give it a try. Go ahead and we'll try the hiring aspect of it, the local people and everything. And that's the motion, and we've had a second, we've had more discussions. So let's go ahead and vote on
Can I
Walt's
ask one other
motion.
question, Mr. Chairman? How long is the Corix bid good for? How long have they guaranteed that price for, Travis?
We generally require 90 days on all bids. Let me see
That's
if I can.
correct. It's a 90-day bid, but it's a 1-year contract term,
But they're not, in terms of their bid price,
90 days.
so if we went out right now and said, we're gonna give it a try, one more try to hire people,
I-
and it doesn't do, we've still got the price, we would not have to rebid it.
For
That's
90
correct,
days.
but
I-
that's not gonna be a problem. We will be able to hire people, in my opinion. We are gonna be able to hire them. It's just, the turnover rate is a concern. We'll be able to fill the positions, I believe.
Well, let's give it a try. I don't feel a strong sense, the board consensus, that we should go with the contract. So we got a motion, have a second? Discussion? How are we gonna go? Okay, let's take it by member, vote yes is to not enter into this contract, but to hire. Okay. Vote no, be to not do that. Okay.
Member Keeline,
Yes?
Member Baldwin,
Yes.
Member Green,
Yes.
Member Rosen,
Yes,
Member Ludwig,
Yes, okay. Okay, let's see where we are here. Okay, number 15, consider approving Pac-12 renewal. Good evening, Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Staff recommends the approval of the Pac-12 renewal. This is an NCTC agreement with a term through June 30th of 2024. We currently carry Pac-12 on channel 794 on the optional Sports Plus tier. With this agreement, we'll be able to maintain our current carriage level with no additional launch obligations. Year-over-year rate increases are consistent with historical increases and are within budgeted parameters. The length of the agreement coincides with the period of time Pac-12 owns the rights to the sports content that it shows. There are rate reductions available for increases in the number of NCTC subscribers to the network. This agreement has been reviewed by the Assistant General Manager for Administration and meets with his approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions on this item.
Who is the Pac-12? USC, UCLA?
Yeah.
I thought it was pattern activated carbon.
That's why it's a football program.
I move we approve the agreement.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Hearing no nos, motion carries. Action item, or rather agenda item number 16 is an action item. Consider a cable advisory committee appointment.
Staff recommends the board appoint Madeline Crescatelli to the Cable Advisory Committee with a term beginning September 20th, 2019 through August 30th, 2021. One position on the advisory committee is reserved for a local high school student. This appointment is needed to fill the vacancy left by Tim Smith, who is our student representative from Franklin County High School, whose term ended. Ms. Crescatelli is an 11th grader at Frankfort High School. As a reminder to the board, staff endeavors to rotate the student representative on the committee between the 3 public high schools while seeking input from school leaders for potential student representatives. Staff from Frankfort Independent Schools recommended Ms. Crescatelli. I spoke to her on the phone and she seemed genuinely interested in serving and participating. A copy of the nominee's letter of interest is included in the details section, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on this item.
When was the last advisory committee meeting?
It was a week ago tonight.
Okay, is there meeting minutes from that?
Yes, they'll. I have it on my list of things to do this
Okay,
week, and
good.
so I'll send it out to the members
Okay.
for their review, and then
Sure.
I would anticipate having it in next month's
Okay.
agenda for your.
And when will the next, you meet quarterly, or?
Yes, ma'am.
So the next meeting probably isn't
The
until
next
next
scheduled
year?
meeting is December,
Oh.
whatever the
Yes.
second Tuesday in December
Okay.
is. But we will mostly, I would assume, we discussed in our last meeting, we'll probably have a special meeting between now and then
Oh.
with the retrans. But we don't, until we have those, proposals in hand, it's hard to schedule anything.
Would it be possible to send an email to board members just when you're going to have a meeting, just so we're kind of aware of it? Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Do they receive any compensation?
They do not.
Oh, that was a question.
Don't they get their basic cable?
They get, they pay for their basic cable, they get additional tiers provided, complimentary.
I see.
They are all FPB cable subscribers.
Okay.
So that's part of the requirements.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's get this lady on board. It's, do we have a motion?
I move.
Okay, we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no.
Thanks.
Good. Okay, and next 2 items are related, having to do with the Millville Waterline project. Number 17 on the agenda is an action item. Consider approving the supplemental documentation related to a $161,500 KIA grant reallocation for the Millville Waterline project. Billy?
I try not to come up here every month and read the agenda items off, but there's a lot of detail on this one, so if the board will grant me a little latitude, I'm gonna read this one verbatim. There's a lot of information. We've been working with Castle and Key, which is a distillery down on McCracken Pike, the old Taylor distillery, for several years. They are trying to repurpose that and open it up and get back in business. In December of 2016, we had a meeting with the elected leadership of Woodford and Franklin counties, the AD district, KIA, and as well as Castle and Key Distillery. We were informed that grant monies had been secured in the amount of $161,500 for the benefit of installing a larger water main in the Millville area. We informed those intendants that the amount that had been secured was not enough to install a new 12-inch water line all the way to the distillery, but that we could utilize the money to get the line closer to the distillery. Prior to today, there's been a lot of work going in to make that funding available. For example, there's 2016 House Bill 303 authorization bill. There was a resolution passed by the city, resolution number 8 in 2017. That's been attached. There's been a grant memorandum of agreement between the state Department for Local Government and the city of Frankfort, that with designating the Frankfort Plant Board as the assignee. Project profile has been put together and submitted. The business tonight is staff is requesting that the board consider additional supplemental documentation related to the grant. This documentation includes, but is not limited to, a resolution of the plant board accepting the assignment, authorizing amendment of the budget, which David will have to work on later, and authorizing a representative to sign all related documents, also a recording certificate, as well as an assignment between the city and the Frankfort Plant Board. Staff and board attorney has reviewed the agreement and associated documentation and found them acceptable. I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
Difference in the price between a 10 and 12-inch line.
They're about the same. People don't, we quit using 10-inch line, how many years ago, Alan? Yeah. The last time that we looked at buying 10-inch line, we were doing a relocation of a 10-inch line here in town, and I believe 10-inch was as much or more than a 12-inch line. Does that strike a chord with your memory, Alan?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Matter of fact, like, my used ductile is twice as expensive as 6-inch ductile.
It's just not common, 10-inch.
Will we be selling, after this is done, will we be selling more water?
Don't think so.
Okay.
It's primarily for fire protection.
Okay.
The old distillery was served by a 6-inch line. They had their own fire suppression system, much like, you remember Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
They asked for higher fire protection demands that could be, than the plant board could provide, so they put their own fire suppression system in. Since the distillery, we've made some improvements in the line, and we have a 12-inch line in the area close. They could get their fire suppression needs, which have yet to be determined exactly, from us without them putting their own fire suppression system in. It's much cheaper for them to do a line extension than it is to upgrade their fire suppression system. It would be a private fire suppression system at that point.
I move we approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Hearing no nos, motion carries, and that leads us right into number 18. David?
And Lila,
Consider executing an agreement between Bluegrass Area Development District and the FEWPB to perform grant administration related to the KyMEA grant for the Millville Water Project for $3,000.
standard operating procedure with any KyMEA grant, KyMEA loan. We always use a third-party administrator. I reached out to the Bluegrass Area Development District to provide a scope of work for grant administration related to the project that the board just approved. Staff will be preparing a budget amendment as required that I mentioned earlier, showing the receipt of the grant monies along with this $3,000 expenditure for grant administration. Staff recommends the board approve this agreement with the Bluegrass Area Development District contingent upon receipt of insurance requirements and approval by the staff attorney.
I move that we approve the agreement between BGADD and FPB relating to the $3,000 administration cost.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Hearing no nos, motion carries. Okay, is everybody ready for a little break here? Been at it for 2 hours. So let's take a break here for a few minutes and come back. Okay, well, we'll get back started here. David? I think we're down to number 19. Action item. Consider approving authorizing resolution to apply for a KyMEA loan for the reservoir replacement project.
Last month, we got some very good word that our reservoir project ranked high enough. It's a competitive process for those that don't know. But our project ranked high enough to be invited to apply for a low-interest KyMEA loan. So on or about the 23rd, the board chair accepted the invitation, which set forth a process of a lot more additional information along with the application itself. The application deadline was yesterday. Strand submitted the application on behalf of the plant board, so that hurdle has been crossed. Up for consideration now is a resolution for filing of the loan application and appointing the board chair as the official project representative. That resolution authorizes the board chair to submit the application and supporting data as necessary. Staff recommends the board approve the resolution. The staff attorney has reviewed and approved the agreement. Should say resolution there, sorry.
Okay, and time is of the essence to some degree, isn't it, David?
Yes, sir, it is. I'm fairly certain that the funds would have to be expensed by December of 2019, so we've got to get moving on the project. The good thing about this is it will save us a significant amount of interest over the life of the loan, about $850,000 the last time I looked at it.
Which makes Mr. Denton very happy.
Well, and it makes our ratepayers happier too.
And if he's happy and they're happy,
What is state of Kentucky money too, right? I mean, it's,
Say again?
we get the money from the state of Kentucky, KIA?
It's a loan. It's a low
Oh, I
interest
know.
loan.
Okay.
The benefit is if we were to have to go to the conventional bond market, that bond market's about, what, 3.5% now?
Right.
This is 1.75, or it should be 1.75. That'll be determined later. The last time that we got a low interest loan, we were determined to be regional. I wouldn't expect that would change. And under the regional determination, we would qualify for 1.75%. So looking at the amortization schedule between the two, it's about $850,000 savings in interest. But it is money that we have to pay back.
Right. Okay.
It
It's out of the revolving
is
pool.
state revolving fund.
it's a revolving pool, you know.
This is similar to what we did with the backup generator at the water treatment plant. It was a KIA and it was a good deal. It was even a better deal.
It is a
There was
good deal.
Some loan forgiveness on that one.
Plus, we don't have to pay principal and interest from day one. We're just paying, we close out on the loan after the construction is done. That's when the amortization schedule is calculated, so.
Let's just hope we can get all our ducks in a row. And
I move we approve the resolution.
Second.
discussion. If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Hearing no no's, motion carries. Okay, next item is also Reservoir, number 20. I'll just read it. Consider approval of amendment number 5 between Strand Associates, Inc. and Plant Board for additional services already incurred, submitting to Planning and Zoning, KIA SRF Loan Administration, and Phase 2 boundary fence and remaining site landscaping related to the Reservoir project, Reservoir Replacement Project, in the amount of an additional $122,493. Okay, David.
Beginning in 2007, we issued an RFQ and we selected Strand Associates for engineering related to this project. We've been through several iterations. The original contract was for a condition assessment of the existing reservoir. Phase 2 was for liner options and cost associated with updating the existing reservoir. At the end of that phase, it was ultimately decided that replacing the reservoir with a new pre-stressed concrete tank was the most cost-effective, long-term effective solution. Phase 3 entailed design and delivery of the new tanks, which was started, then ultimately put on hold due to the replacement of the cable head end project. Phase 4 included design of interim repairs and a monitoring program necessary to temporarily extend the service life during construction of the new head end. Phase 5 included updated topographical survey and revised drawings and renderings for public meeting together with limited landscape design. Since then, additional work outside that previously approved scope of work has been requested and performed. Examples: the Reservoir Site Alternatives Report, 6 three-dimensional interactive models, a presentation on the roof options, and preliminary design and costing of a retaining wall, etc. Additionally, new develops in the project has necessitated a contract amendment. As a matter of course, we requested that Strand provide a Phase 6 scope of work to provide submittal to Planning and Zoning, to do KIA loan administration, and the design bidding services contract administration of the remaining boundary fence and site landscaping. That's the portions not covered under the GRW, the work done by GRW that was discussed earlier. The FY 17-18 budget includes $165,000 for engineering and $4 million for construction of the project. The addendum has been reviewed by the staff attorney, and the staff recommends that the board approve addendum number 5 with Strand Associates in the amount of an additional $122,493.07, and to amend the engineering budget accordingly. I'll be happy to entertain any questions. I also have Strand here, if there's any questions related to Strand.
So I take it, this is money that's not in the budget currently?
It is.
Oh, it is.
I think I had $165,000 budgeted for engineering in this year's budget.
Mhm.
That included some of the engineering fees related to construction-related activities. So that's going to go into next year, so we'll have another budget cycle going on. So I have the monies budgeted for this year. I don't think I'm going to spend those for what we anticipated to spend it on. So I don't think that I'll be going forward with a budget amendment to change this year's engineering budget. I think it'll be more reflected in next year's budget.
Okay.
That makes
Thank
sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move we approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The motion carries. Moving right along, we're down to number 21. Looks like this is an action item. Accept E3 report.
Okay. Well, I've carefully read the report, and I think it sums up the things from the E3 visit and earlier report, and that we should take all of that seriously and accept the report and act on it.
And if I could, I'd like to read some of it into the record. The short of the report is that E3 gave us 3 options to move forward. One is remain in KyMEA and pursue the changes to the interlocal agreement that are specified in the earlier E3 report. Number 2 was that we could withdraw and pursue our own power procurement program. And number 3, which wasn't recommended, was to do nothing and move forward. And I wanted to read the summaries of the options as well. Option 1, staying with KyMEA and pursuing the changes. E3 says if FPB remains in KyMEA, it's critical that KyMEA implement the FPB request described below. As noted earlier, KyMEA does not bear any risk. The consequences of poor KyMEA decision-making are passed directly through to members. Additionally, members are directly impacted by the commercial and organizational structure established in KyMEA's suite of contracts. Because of this situation, if the changes described below are not implemented, members' customers will pay the price. These costs are real. For example, the additional costs related to KyMEA's overprocurement of capacity are estimated to be at least $12 million in the 2019 through 2022 period. FPB customers these costs. FPB's customers' share of these costs is approximately $6 million. And then under option 2, let me get to that one. Under option 2, withdrawal from KyMEA, E3 notes, a withdrawal from KyMEA should be seriously considered if KyMEA continues to be unresponsive to FPB requests. And then under option 3, continue status quo arrangements, because members bear all the risk of KyMEA arrangements, including the cost of agency procurement, and because members will continually be reliant upon the agency to interpret contracts and manage day-to-day operations, continuing under the status quo is not recommended. I would move that we accept the entire report into the record.
I second that.
Any discussion? So the motion is to accept it into the record, is that right?
That's right.
Yes.
Vote this by member. Vote yes is to accept the E3 report into the record. Vote no would be to not do that.
Member Keeline?
Yes.
Member Baldwin?
Yes.
Member Green?
Yes.
Member Rosen?
Yes.
Member Ludwig?
No. Motion carries 4-1. The next item is number 22. It's an action item. Award contract based upon RFP for legal counsel regarding KyMEA review.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, this goes along with the E3 report that you just heard about. The board passed a motion a couple meetings ago to secure an independent legal review of the KyMEA all requirements contract and the power purchase agreements. We identified 13 law firms, some Kentucky, some national firms, which we thought would have the necessary background and expertise to do this legal work. So the RFP was sent to 13 firms. We got 7 positive responses, firms that wished to be considered. 3 did not respond. 1 declined to participate. 2 responded positively, but were deemed to have a conflict of interest. So 7 positive responses were reviewed. Scoring system was used to rank the proposals, very similar to what was done with regard to the previous contract that was awarded to E3. Scoring system was used. The board has received the detailed proposals submitted by the firms that responded positively. The group that worked on this is recommending that the contract be awarded to Reed Smith. Tells you who the other 2, I guess, semifinalists were, but Reed Smith was found to have the top scoring proposal. So it's recommended that the contract be awarded to Reed Smith. The lead partner is Edward Rogan. Again, the board has information in quite a bit of detail of projects that the firm has worked on and similar work that they've done in the past. He submitted his hourly rates and also some of other firm members. It's further recommended that the contract be for a total amount not to exceed $50,000.
What's the role of this attorney, as you understand it, in this process?
If they're awarded this contract,
Yes.
their role would be to give us a legal analysis of the KyMEA all requirements contract and the power purchase agreements. It would basically coincide with what's already been received from E3, but this is from a purely legal standpoint. Tell us, the board, what legal options there are, if they recommend that legal action be taken. Of course, we don't know that at this point.
And I guess to add to that, it would also be to assist us with the implementation of the contract changes recommended by the E3 reports.
And just to remember, with E3, we spent 56,000, is that correct?
58 and change,
58.
I think.
Sounds about
Okay.
right.
Okay, so just to give perspective on what the legal aspect is, which is critical.
So I would make a motion to award the contract to Reed Smith to review the KyMEA all requirements contract, power purchase agreements, provide guidance on the implementation of the contract changes recommended in the E3 reports. I'd like to direct staff to work with the board's attorney, under the board's attorney's direction, to implement the necessary engagement, contract and documentation, legal review to be conducted at the board's attorney direction, total amount not to exceed $50,000.
I second that.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, we would like to make a budget amendment, just due to not being a budgeted item, so we'll have that information if it were to pass.
No discussion?
My only concern is, one, we don't have a work plan yet. I totally agree we need independent counsel, because if we get into contract changes with KyMEA, they have representation, and we're going to need somebody on our end to review those documents that are prepared by them. But at this point, and I don't see, going back to the E3, I don't see much movement there until we get a CEO on board at KyMEA. Because I think our current process going back and forth, we're not making much progress. But I would like to see more work done on the hourly rate, and I'm not sure the 50,000 until we have a work plan and we assign a work plan. As a placeholder, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with going with that big of a placeholder until we know what a work plan is.
Well, isn't our work plan to find out what our legal rights are as far as how they're handling the questions we've raised, such as which
No, I
contracts are
think we're
going
at the
with?
point, if we know what the issues are, I think the issue is, at some point, we're gonna have a set of issues that we want to say, we want these changed. And then if they won't make the changes, or if they make the changes, submit new contract language. But I don't think, I'm not comfortable that at this hourly rate and that amount of money, that I'm not arguing the firm, or that we need to, I'm just not sure on the amount and the hourly rate.
I guess two things. One, I actually intended to amend my motion, I didn't, so I would amend it now. And I would amend it that staff work to negotiate a blended rate with the firm, so we have,
I just think the
A little
50's
more
too, I just think the
understanding.
50's too high until we have a scope of work.
Yeah, and I guess scope of work wise, I think we've got that fairly well defined now. We've got, the questions that E3 didn't choose to opine on for their comment. We've also need some direction on how to move forward with the recommendations given the strategic directions we've got, and then a general, review of the all requirements contract for soundness per the original board directive.
So do those 3 points satisfy you, John?
No. Not at this point. I mean, I think it's gotta be a much more defined, at this hourly rate, that's only 71 hours. That's a quick burn rate. If they come to Frankfurt for a meeting, they'll burn 3 days worth of that time just in flight.
Yeah,
I think
but-
we've gotta nail that down tighter. It's too wide open and too big an hourly rate.
But, we can mitigate any chance of travel by, video conference, even for the attendance of the meeting. I mean, it seems like those travel concerns are easily.
I mean, I just feel more comfortable deferring until I had a better feel on the scope of work and those rates. Saying we'll get a blended rate doesn't, I don't know what the blended rate is. $5 off, $10 off, $200 off?
Well, yeah.
I mean, they're $300 higher an hour than any firm in Kentucky.
Well, this range isn't that high. I mean, what do we get?
But we don't know who's gonna be billing us.
True, and that's, the blended rate helps you have some surety on that. But,
I have those
we had-
I have the same concerns that my colleague John has, but I have deeper concerns than that, and that is with all this E3 and this hiring of consultants on top of consultants and all. I just see us becoming more adversarial toward KyMEA, and we're a member of KyMEA, and we're committed to KyMEA, and I just see this adversarial atmosphere developing, and it bothers me a lot when we're a year and a half from having to have a power supplier in this town.
Yeah, clearly, I mean, the capacity issue, I've got a lot of concerns about. I know there's other things going on. I know Berea's in the hunt. I mean, but I don't know where we at, Herbie, on them hiring a CFO or CEO at KyMEA. Are they close?
Yes, I think their goal is to have one hired by December. I think maybe even late October is to have an offer to the CEO.
I mean, I think somebody, even if it was a work session, not to vote, but even if we had a work session, I mean, I think at some point, we've got enough issues to find between what E3's raised, other issues. There's other issues there about what the compensation, where the headquarters, all those things. I mean, if we had a work session to actually have a face-to-face with the new CEO and just see where this is going.
But we're half of KyMEA's budget, and we have limited amount of say in that, and so they would be making steps, going ahead with things before we have any way of controlling what they do.
But we signed agreed to that voting right. Whether we like it or not, that's the deal we signed.
I didn't vote in favor.
It doesn't matter, this board voted.
Okay.
We can't change that, I don't see.
True.
I mean, it's no different than the United States Senate. We got the same number of votes in the U.S. Senate as California does. That's just the rules, that's what we're under. Whether we like, I mean, I'd like to see us half the votes too, but that's not, just because we voted 3-2 to join, we still voted to join. I mean, that's,
But isn't our goal to, what E3 is saying is that we need to have more direct input as to the
oh, sure, I mean,
decisions being
and that's a
made?
laudable goal, but the bottom line is, we signed, and we need to make the most out of what we've got. And
But our window of opportunity to make changes is closing pretty quickly, and so,
based on some of the legal we've got, I think some of those windows are already closed.
Well, I guess two things. One, I don't think it's adversarial to do our due diligence on these contracts. I think we have
it is.
I think we have a
it is.
responsibility to our ratepayers.
That's what
you know,
lies
to make-
behind this.
To make
yes.
sure that, we're providing the best service we can. And, the capacity issue is one issue, but at the end of the day, we don't even have a rate schedule in front of us now. We don't have any idea how we'll compare to the KU rates we have now once this thing's implemented. And that, plus the governance concerns and our experience with the transparency of the organization, rightly give me great pause about, what the possibility
Well, we can
of
play
success
around
is
with
moving
this, and we
forward.
can wreck our participation in KYMEA, and they won't pay the penalties and price, and we have no defined way to go to get power once we're out of KYMEA.
Well, there are
And it's getting pretty late in the game to play that.
there are certainly options to pursue other powers and pursue other power suppliers. And
That's right, and it
my-
takes years to do it. And
No,
what
my-
price?
my-
You're talking
my-
about price, what price?
my impression that we can get competitive pricing, and also that my impression is it's a 6 to 9 month process to get that in place.
Your purpose is to get us out of KYMEA, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Yeah,
My
it
purpose
is.
is to make sure we're getting the best deal that we can for our ratepayers.
Well, we have a motion, we have a second, I guess we have a motion.
Yes,
So
sir.
where are we?
You have a motion and a second.
We've been discussing. So, we have any more discussion? Maybe we can get a vote. Okay, we'll vote just by member. Vote yes is to award this contract to Mr. Reed Smith, attorney, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Vote no would be to not. Kathy?
Excuse me, Mayor Cubine,
I'm voting no, but it's to defer because I want to see that work plan.
Member Baldwin,
Yes.
Member Green,
No.
Member Rosen,
Yes.
Member Ludwig,
No. Okay, motion fails. Let's see, where are we? 23, old new business. Yes, we got some. Okay.
If the board will recall, we awarded a contract or awarded a bid to Colorado Lining to do the lining at the reservoir. I received notice on April 17th that Colorado Lining has been bought out by Raven Lining Systems. So they sent us an assignment, which basically assigns all the rights to the new purchaser. Staff recommends approval of the assignment. It's my understanding that it went out to the board members today. So sorry
No
for the
change in
short
terms and
notice.
conditions.
That's my impression. Hance?
Just changing companies, assignment, is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, I don't see, you see any reason not to do this? Okay,
No, sir.
okay, let's, I move that we sign the contract assignment. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Hearing no no's, motion carries. Let's see. Make a note here. Sign the contract. Okay, any more old new business?
Well, I just, since we voted down number 22, do we need to work on some strategy for a work plan? Would you, what would you suggest we do, John?
I mean, I think we need a work plan, but I was hoping they would get the CEO in sooner at KyMEA than that. Because I mean, I really think bantering back and forth between consultants, us and the in front, is not getting us anywhere. I don't see us moving the ball down the field. But I think if we knew who was going to be running KyMEA and had somebody in there, it would give us a better feel on just where things are going and what the issues there. But you're thinking it's December?
I think they'll have the candidate selected by late October. They'll make the offer, and so he probably won't come on board for, I'm thinking, a month or so.
We'd know who it is, you think, by early November?
I think so, yes.
But it seems to me now's the time to get the legal counsel on board. I mean, it's time for us to get, a firm path forward and figure out what our remedies for and what our direction forward is given the terms of the contract we signed.
So
I mean,
we
I
could
don't see
do
why
our
we
part.
wait until after
Yeah.
the CEO is appointed to have our game plan together. I mean, I'm all for sitting down and engaging with whoever, but letting it just set until that happens doesn't seem like our best course forward.
But I don't think we're anywhere near to the issues that E3 lists. Which of the issues that E3 lists are basically drop dead issues.
Yeah,
There's a lot of them in there that are not drug issues
Sure.
at all.
and I agree. I mean, and I think.
So I don't think we go in with a list of 30 things saying these are all killer things.
Right.
Because we don't need 31 things. We
Yeah.
probably need 3 or 4.
Yeah. Well, I guess my big thing at this point is I think, the big things on that list that strike us are what are our remedies and how do we move things forward? At this point, it seems like based on the response that we got from KyMEA, it was fairly non-responsive. So we're at the point now where, we need to figure out legally what's our next path forward to be able to get some resolution. I think it's also valuable to, based on the original motion, to have a general contract review of the AR, so we have that in our pocket as well. But I think our goal primarily is not to go back and 1, 2, 3 through all the E3 recommendations. It's more about let's get a game plan about how we attack them.
Right, and by the time we have a game plan and have legal aid, then probably KyMEA would have a leader that we could deal with.
And that's why I feel like that's why I'm comfortable moving forward with the legal RFP at this point, because those are the products we need. We don't need to start, we're not at the point of starting litigation, we're not at any of that yet. We're at a point to understanding what our options are to move forward and how we do this under the constraints of the contracts.
Is there any more old new business?
Well, I'm not sure we're done with this one yet.
So what we're talking about here is trying to come up with a plan for how we're going to move forward.
I mean, do we want to revisit the previous motion with that constraint of a work plan, or where do you think we are?
I mean, to me, I think, and maybe it would just be in the form of a work session. I mean, I just think we
Okay.
can sit down and just grind through it one at a time and say, this is important, this is.
Okay, so,
I mean, do you think we could just limit it today to saying we want to get that path forward, and we want to have that initial review of the AR contract, and that be our work plan? Or do we need more detail at this point?
I think we've got all the documents. I think it's just a matter of just walking through one at a time.
Yeah.
Because some of them just, they're niceties, but
Yeah.
it'd been nice to go back and do something, have a 10-year plan, we did. But we're not there anymore.
Yeah.
That's over.
Sure.
It's
Right.
nice, but you can take it off. It's not happening.
right,
10 years, that's already happened. We're not going, we can't recreate that. I mean,
Well,
there's things that just need to come off that list.
well, we could go through that list right now.
No,
It's
that's
not-
not
Well,
some
okay.
issues
I
that
don't-
everybody needs to look
yeah.
at and
Okay.
have time. That's
Okay,
a 4 or
good.
5 hour project.
I'm not sure
Okay.
we're there, but I
Okay,
think
good.
it does seem like we're at a point where we could say, we need to know our path forward, what our options are. We need an initial, just based on and the review's part of that, based on the AR contract, what are our constraints and how do we move forward, and how do you suggest we best accomplish that? And then in that process, we can have a work session and we can go through and prioritize
And
our
those
list.
issues there, I think we need to prioritize which are the ones that make a difference for the people in this community.
Yeah.
Which are the ones that save them money and give better service.
Yeah, and I think these are two different things, right? And I think it's fine to go ahead and move forward with the award of the legal services, get them on board to give us our path forward, and then we have a parallel track of going through and moving through all the issues, and as a board deciding which ones we think are relevant for the community.
Well, you're re-arguing the same motion here, it was just defeated.
No, it's
Yeah,
a
you are.
motion for a work plan, not a motion for a
But
contract.
I don't think we need a high-priced attorney on board to have that work plan discussion.
I don't either.
Because
But
the meter's running there, and that's a lot of money to pay for somebody sitting around thinking deep.
Right. I don't think we need it for that discussion either, but I do think we need it. We may need it to some extent, but I think we need it primarily to help us have that path forward so we know what to do after we've got that. I agree, we don't need them for that work session, but, that's my point. We can go ahead and move forward with that narrow scope of, give us our path forward here. What are our remedies? What is our path to pursue what comes out of that work session? And then we as a board have the work session to get that list.
I think it's going the wrong way. I think we decide what our priorities are, then they review it for that, not, they tell us what our options are, then we go decide what's important to us. I think that's backwards.
I think I'm talking about something different. I mean, the list is one thing, but and we would certainly want some feedback on that list, but that's probably more on the consulting side than on the legal side. But per the provisions of the interlocal agreement and the AR contract, to have a lawyer go through there and specifically spell out these are the levers you have to execute those options, that list that's important to you. I mean, it seems like those are two different things to us.
We have a representative with KyMEA, and we can work with KyMEA, but we can't dictate to KyMEA.
Well, there are certainly remedies in the contract that are laid out, and part of this discussion is having legal counsel give us some recommendation on how we get to the closest to, or to the best agreement that we can.
I mean, to me, that if we want to get started off, the easiest way is to get a work session with this board, Herbie, Hans, James, Vint, and there, and let's just walk through the list one at a time. And we've got KyMEA's response, we've got E3's response, and just see where we are.
But then we get that list, and then we're kind of at the same point again, right? We're gonna go back and say, okay, we award the RFP, and now we just have an additional task to throw on the RFP. It doesn't change the fact that, or on that scope of work, it doesn't change the fact that we need them to get familiar with the contract and them to understand what the path forward is. And now there's a third work product, which is, okay, what's your advice on that work product based on that earlier analysis? So that analysis seems to me it happens no matter what. And then we get our list together, and that becomes an additional work product for them.
I mean, I've got no problem with the firm, but I'm not ready to award until I see the rate and have a very tight scope of work at that rate. Because you can burn through 71 hours really fast.
Sure.
And then we'd be looking at another amendment, and I just want a tougher scope of work, and I don't think we've got it.
Okay.
I want to read some more and talk about it some more, but
But
that's
we don't,
not
I mean,
scope of work.
you don't think that, having that contract review and having the methods of remedy is a tight enough scope of work, and that seems like a fairly short scope of work.
I think we'd be out of $50,000 overnight.
Well, it seems to me we're out of it either way.
They put 2 or 3 people on it, and we've burned the contract already.
So then what's your recommendation for defining that rate structure such that we have a handle on that? Are you just talking about defining the resources? Do you want to pursue a blended rate? What's your thought there?
I mean, I don't know, I've not talked to the firm, I don't know I don't know who's going to be doing the primary work, I don't know what their rate is. But I think the first step is to define the scope of work, and we've not done it yet.
I mean, in my mind, that first part is our first scope of work. Review the contract, understand what our remedy paths are. And then it sounds like we've got an additional work product on there, which is recommendations based on the output of a work session. I mean, that's the scope of work to me. I don't know what else we would have.
The whole purpose is adversarial toward KyMEA.
No, the whole purpose is beneficial towards our readers, towards our
I think
customers.
it's time to move on the agenda tonight.
Well, I don't think so. I think it's important to sort this out.
So, yeah, we're looking at protecting our interests. I think the estimate is that we're gonna pay $6 million before we even get power.
We can continue to work with KyMEA, but we don't have to hire attorneys to start dragging it out.
Well, it seems like we do. I mean, we've been working back and forth with them for quite some time, and we're at the point where
We belong to KyMEA.
all of the work we've put into it, they
We
were
belong to
non.
KyMEA.
they
We have to
were-
pay,
they were
we have to go along with
non-responsive
the
to.
rules, just like the other members do.
Well, I disagree. I think there are serious concerns here that we need to address and that we need to clarify in the contract. There's a great deal of vagueness in the existing contract, and leaving that looseness in the contract is at our peril.
Do we have any more old or new business tonight?
Well,
We're not getting anywhere.
I mean, I'd be happy to, if you want to schedule a work session, Mr. Chairman, to schedule that among ourselves. I mean, obviously it's open to the public, but to do that, and with our people in here, let's just go through it and see where we are.
I'm not
I
opposed
still
to
don't-
that.
Huh?
I'm not opposed to that.
Well, isn't the first thing really to review the contract and see what our rights are within the contract as far as?
I just don't understand how that work product goes away. I mean, we're still going to have a lawyer that's going to have to familiarize themselves with the contract and going to have to give us remedy paths forward. I mean, that happens no matter what we do from this point. So that, to me, seems like an initial scope of work. I don't see how that goes away. So I guess at this point, I would make a motion, per my previous motion, with the addendum of the scope of work is to familiarize themselves with the AR contract and to provide paths of remedy forward.
I don't understand the motion. Were you saying you hiring an attorney to do this, or what?
We're back to the previous motion.
The previous motion was defeated.
So
Well,
I've submitted it again with an addendum, which is, I can read it again if you like. Get back to my notes here. Motion to award the contract to Reed Smith to review KYMEA to review the KYMEA all requirements contract, provide paths forward for remedy of our concerns, direct staffs to work with the board's attorney at the direction of the board's attorney to implement necessary engagement and contract documentation, legal review to be conducted at board attorney's direction, total amount not to exceed $50,000.
I second it.
Any discussion? Voted by member. Vote yes is to grant the motion, vote no is to not grant. Kathy?
Member Keybine?
No.
Member Baldwin?
Yes.
Member Green?
No.
Member Rosen?
Yes.
Member Ludwig?
No. Okay, old new business, any more old new business? Everybody ready to fold up here tonight?
Tonight represents my last meeting, and no, I didn't tell you, Mr. Bannister, because I wanted to end it this way. So thanks for allowing me the 23 years of service to the community, to the board, to my coworkers. Thank you to Mr. Keynes, Mr. Sandage, Mr. Bannister, all my coworkers over the last 23 years. I moved to Frankfort on October 17th, 1994, my first day of work, and I was newly divorced. I didn't have a place to live, and everything I owned was in the backseat of my car. And I've made some progress since then. So, and I made the progress because of all the hard work that the staff and the folks here at the plant board have allowed me to do. So I appreciate everything you've done for me and my family. And I appreciate very much my wife and my kids. This isn't a 40-hour-a-week job, and they've sacrificed a lot. So thanks.
John, on behalf of the
I'm
board,
done,
no, we thank you, buddy. Come on
That's why I
now.
wanted to do it this way.
Yeah, we thank you.
Appreciate it.
Also, let me say that tonight, Scott Green and I came on the board in October of 2010. We're the last two bottles of beer in the wall. And this is Scott's final evening with the board, and his term ends next week, I think it is. And he's been in there. He's slugged it out the whole way down the line, and I'm going to miss him. And he's really served the board well and very conscientious. We have a lot of things that come up from time to time that are controversial, but we all still respect each other on this board. And I thank Scott for everything you've done, Scott. Okay.
As mentioned, this is my last meeting as a member of the board of directors of the Frankfort Plant Board. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Mayor Gippy Graham and Mayor Bill May for giving me this opportunity to serve. It has been a pleasant journey, at least it was for the first 5 years, when we had a board that worked together to get things done in an orderly fashion and on time. I was on the board of the Bluegrass Counsel for about 10 years, Health Department for 18 years, and now this board for 7 years. But I believe that we have made more capital improvements in the 7 years that I've been on the board than any other time in the history of the Frankfort Plant Board. And for those who watch on Channel 10, I'd like to list some of these improvements that we have made. The first one was with water treatment plant. We were using chlorine to purify the water that we pull out of the Kentucky River, and we were purchasing our chlorine in the form of a gas. Chlorine gas is a deadly chemical, and if one of our canisters were to rupture, we would have a lot of dead people. And Wingrove came up with the idea that we could make a plant that produced liquid chlorine, which is actually a weak form of coal rocks. And that we did. Our second big project that we had was to put generators in a water treatment plant. And that came in under budget and on time, thanks to our water superintendent or general manager, David. The next project was the Headend, and that had been a little controversial project, but we have to thank John for a wonderful job he did there. Our next project was the administration building, and we picked our best looking engineer for that job. We came out with a beautiful building, nothing elaborate, no big arches, no Greek columns, but just a real nice looking building that I think the people of Frankfort and Franklin County can be genuinely proud of, and I know we are. This should serve our plant board for the next 50 to 75 years. The project that did not get done, which was a great disappointment to me, was the reservoir. And when I came on the board, our number one project was going to be to replace the reservoir, which had been leaking for a number of years. Due to the, I guess we should say, reluctance of the board and the Tanglewood Association, that project hasn't been completed. But it's my understanding now that Suzanne Gray has given us her permission to put it back where it was for the last 130 years. The other things that the Frankfort Plant Board does is they're very civic minded. They donate a lot of money to the United Way. I had a list of other things that they did. We put LED lights in downtown Frankfort. We hang the banners for Derby Week. We take our water fountain, our what we call it, water monster out to different places. We just hung lights in the Singing Bridge. We put a water fountain downtown on the plaza. Not only for people to drink, but for pets to drink too. This is a wonderful company, and I think everybody should be extremely proud of it. And we have three people that I want to recognize specifically. John Higginbotham, which has done a wonderful job with Headend and his programs. Our general manager, Herbie Bannister, who has done a marvelous job shepherding this company for the last few years through a lot of trials and tribulations, I might say. Herbie and I spend a lot of time together talking about family, fishing, fishing stories, and Melvin stories. That's kind of an inside joke. And most of all, our chairperson, Ralph Ludwig. Ralph has left his law practice and donated, and I want to mention that donated his time and efforts for hundreds of hours on behalf of the Plant Board. And we will never be able to repay him for the time he's given the Plant Board. It's been a pleasure to serve this wonderful organization, and I hate to leave, but my time's up. Thank you.
Any general manager's comments this evening? Okay. I was told initially that we would need a closed session for two items of litigation, but the staff tells me that they are not needed, or that is not needed. Do we need a closed chair?
We do not, Your
Closed
Honor.
session?
Mr. Chairman, I thought at one time we did, but we do not.
Okay. All right, so I guess that's it. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. I didn't know you were gonna do that.